Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez here. For those of you who watched this last weekend's, the 22nd of November's live stream, you will see that I spoke about the cartridges for the XP 15000 from EPSON. And we have one of those and we're going to install it today. I will be putting up the video tomorrow afternoon. So basically what we have is a 13-inch printer that's really good, apparently. As far as the photographic aspect of printing, it can do many other things as well, but we're going to concentrate on photo printing on this printer. And I have been watching a lot of the videos because this printer is already 2 years old, and so there's a lot of videos on YouTube. Well, I want to put out something that's a little bit above what the average video that has already been published offers. So everybody is talking about refillable cartridges. Well, let me tell you, in the current condition of the 15000 with its current firmware, there is no option for a third-party cartridge that will reset itself. In other words, auto reset. You have to buy individual chips. They cost about $10 each. And so that can be a little bit expensive, especially when you have a set of 6 cartridges that you have to constantly refill. That's $60 every time you do that. So what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the Inkchip Solutions or Inkchip.net firmware for it and render that printer chipless. What it will do is it will then show ink levels constantly full. Okay, and so that also brings to question, well, should we install the currently available continuous ink system on it? That would be ideal, wouldn't it? Let me tell you the pros and cons of that idea. Even though it would be perfect because you would not have to worry about the cartridges themselves running dry, okay? Yes, these are refillables. Yes, they are transparent. And yes, I can monitor the ink levels very easily by removing them. But every time I do that and I pop it back in, say it doesn't require refilling, I pop it back in, it will run a purge cycle. So we want to avoid wasting ink because it'll waste ink on all 6 cartridges. So rather than just kind of let luck control things, let's consider the sys unit. The sys unit will allow you to visualize ink levels on the external tanks. These cartridges that are then tied to ink lines will always remain full because it's constantly being replenished with ink. But here's the catch, and this is what I was discussing with Michael Lee from Precisioncolors. Because these cartridges are different, okay? They do not physically mate on an ink stem using an O-ring that seals itself on that ink stem. They use a similar technology like Canon cartridges use, and that basically is a contact-only type so-called mating of the cartridge to the printhead. So can we maintain that contact through refilling after refilling after refilling? That's how these are as well. Can we do that? Can we rely on these cartridges that contact peripheral, like a gasket, from constantly able to seal? Okay. And so that's the question. So that would make that sys unit maybe not be such a great idea, because at some point those contact points on each one of those 6 cartridges may begin to fail, and then you start aspirating air. You don't want that. So what we want is somehow, and again, if I assume that these refillable cartridges contact area, whatever the material is not as reliable as OEM, then I need to find a way to refill these. And also, did the OEM cartridges get designed so that they can never be refilled? And what about if the refilling constantly over and over and over starts to deteriorate that contact area? Now on the Canon Pro-10 doesn't seem to be the case. On the Canon Pro-100 doesn't seem to be the case either. They both mate also by just passive contact. So we'll have to see. I will test these. Just to see after several refills if I can still maintain a perfect nozzle check and perfect ink flow or demand. In other words, my image may demand a lot of yellow all of a sudden. can that cartridge keep up with the demand? That's the question. OEM, of course it can. Now, internally, this is just a sponge, a vent, and a liquid chamber. I don't even think these have a prism at the bottom. Okay, it's just a liquid chamber with a hole that feeds the sponge side. That's it, very simple. This is not so simple. This has a diaphragm in it. This has a bladder that holds the ink, and that bladder collapses and it remains sort of pressurized at a certain level from the contact against that diaphragm. So we have to figure out a way to bypass that. In other words, to allow us to refill that cartridge just the way we refill the Pro-10, for instance, okay, by dribbling ink on the port. Is that possible? We'll have to see. I'll just leave that as a tease for the time being. We're working on that. I cannot divulge what the modification that would be required is yet. Again, like I said, I'm just teasing and throwing that out there to you guys to realize that we may be able to reuse these. Now, these are not resettable, so you still have to rely on the chipless, if you will, solution that various companies are selling out there. Now, I am promoting inkchip.net because they provide me with some free serial numbers that are rather costly, okay, for some of the printer models that I am interested in. And go back to my previous video and you will see what I'm talking about. I'm giving away a P800 serial number, but that's going to last about a week and a half until the end of the month. And then after that is gone, okay? Unless they give me other numbers to give away. All right, so that is it. This has a really good future, okay? I'm hopeful that a sys unit will work okay on this printer. And if that is not the case, then we will rely on the OEM. And at some point after several refills, you'll just have to buy another set of cartridges and begin again to make sure that that sealing, that square or rectangular gasket always seals against that printhead. That's what we need to maintain constantly to ensure that we get the correct ink flow, okay, without introduction of air, either ink leaking out or air leaking in, all right? So that is the critical point here. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And until the next time, happy printing, everybody, and bye-bye.